Pick up the tube of toothpaste sitting on your bathroom counter right now. Turn it over and read what is printed on the back, the part nobody actually reads on an ordinary morning. Sorbitol, sodium lauryl sulfate, hydrated silica, carrageenan, a dye listed only by a number. And somewhere on most tubes, a warning paragraph in small print that tells you if a child under 6 swallows more than what is needed for brushing, to contact a poison control center right away. Most of us have squeezed that tube every morning and night for years without ever reading that warning all the way through, and without ever asking what exactly is in the paste that goes into our mouths twice a day, every day, for an entire lifetime. And the cost of that tube? $6, $7, sometimes more for the kind with extra whitening or extra sensitivity protection, adds up across a household the same way every other small daily purchase does. Multiply it by every person in your family, every few weeks when the tube runs dry, every year for the rest of your life, and you are spending a real amount of money on something built from a fairly short list of genuinely simple ingredients, dressed up in a great deal of marketing. My name is Silas Miller. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My wife has made the toothpaste this family uses for as long as I can remember, from 3 plain ingredients she keeps right in the kitchen cabinet. No plastic tube, no synthetic dye, no warning paragraph required, because there is nothing in it dangerous enough to need one. Today I'm going to show you exactly what those 3 ingredients are, why each one earns its place in the recipe, the simple method to make it yourself, and, because I will not leave this out, the honest, fair conversation about fluoride, since that is the one real difference between this recipe and what the dentist down the road generally recommends. And you deserve a straight answer rather than either side of that argument shouted at you. Let me start with the 3 ingredients, because understanding what each one does makes the whole recipe make sense rather than feeling like a mystery. The first is baking soda, plain sodium bicarbonate, the same box sitting in your refrigerator absorbing odors or in your pantry for baking. In a toothpaste, baking soda does 2 distinct jobs. It is mildly alkaline, which means it helps neutralize the acids in your mouth that come from food, from drink, and most significantly from the bacteria that live on your teeth and feed on the sugars left behind after you eat. Those bacteria produce acid as a byproduct of their own feeding, and that acid is what actually erodes tooth enamel over time, which is the real mechanism behind most cavities. A more neutral, less acidic environment in the mouth is simply a harder environment for that decay process to take hold in. The second job baking soda does is gentle abrasion. Its particles are fine enough not to scratch healthy enamel under normal brushing pressure, but coarse enough to help lift surface stains and the soft, sticky buildup of plaque off the tooth surface as you brush. The second ingredient is coconut oil. This one surprises people the first time they hear it, because oil seems like an unusual thing to put in your mouth on purpose for cleaning. But coconut oil carries a genuinely useful property for this purpose. It is rich in a compound called lauric acid, which has real antimicrobial activity against several of the bacteria and microorganisms commonly found in the mouth, including some directly linked to plaque formation and tooth decay. This is the same basic principle behind the old practice of oil pulling, swishing oil around the mouth for its antibacterial effect, except here the coconut oil is doing double duty as the base that holds the whole paste together, giving it the smooth, spreadable texture that makes a toothpaste actually pleasant to use. the same role water plays in a typical store-bought toothpaste, except coconut oil contributes its own cleaning benefit on top of just being a binder. The third ingredient is a small amount of fine sea salt, optional but worth including, which adds a touch more mild abrasive cleaning power and contributes its own mildly alkaline antibacterial quality to the mix. A few drops of peppermint essential oil at the very end, while not strictly one of the 3 core ingredients, give the paste a clean, familiar mint flavor most people expect from a toothpaste, and peppermint oil itself carries a mild antibacterial quality of its own, which is a pleasant bonus rather than the main reason it is there. That is the whole formula: baking soda, coconut oil, a small amount of sea salt, a few drops of peppermint oil for flavor. Under $3 total, and a batch lasts a single person several weeks, depending on how much you use per brushing. Now the exact recipe written down so you can make it today. Combine 2 tablespoons of baking soda with a half teaspoon of fine sea salt in a small bowl. Mixed together evenly first, while both are still dry. Coconut oil is solid at room temperature in most climates and most seasons, so warm 2 tablespoons of it gently. A few minutes in a bowl set in warm water works well, or a brief moment in a double boiler over low heat, just until it turns liquid or very soft, not hot. Stir the softened coconut oil into the dry baking soda and salt mixture until it forms a smooth, even paste, roughly the texture and consistency you expect from a tube of toothpaste, perhaps slightly grainier. Add 8 to 10 drops of food-grade peppermint oil, the kind sold for baking and cooking, not a concentrated essential oil meant for diffusing, since that strength would be unpleasant and unnecessary here, and stir until evenly distributed throughout the paste. Spoon the finished paste into a small glass jar with a tight lid. A short, wide mason jar works perfectly, or any small glass container you have on hand. Keep a small spoon, a wooden popsicle stick, or a designated small spatula specifically for scooping the paste onto your toothbrush, rather than dipping your toothbrush directly into the jar, which introduces bacteria from your mouth into the remaining paste and shortens how long it stays fresh. A note on consistency through the seasons, since this matters more with a coconut oil base than people expect. Coconut oil is solid at room temperatures below roughly 76 degrees Fahrenheit and liquid above that. In a cool bathroom in winter, your toothpaste will be quite firm, almost like a soft soap, and you may need to scoop a bit more deliberately. In a warm bathroom in summer, it can soften considerably or even become somewhat runny. Neither change affects how well it cleans your teeth. It is simply the nature of the ingredient, and most people who use this for any length of time stop noticing it entirely. Store the jar at room temperature, out of direct sunlight, and a batch made this way typically stays good for 2 to 3 weeks before the coconut oil base starts to lose its fresher qualities, though it remains safe to use well beyond that. Making smaller batches more frequently, rather than one large batch meant to last months, keeps the paste at its best and avoids any concern about it sitting too long. Now the honest conversation, and I want to give this real space rather than rushing past it, because I respect you too much to leave out the one place where this recipe genuinely differs from what most dentists recommend. This homemade toothpaste contains no fluoride. Fluoride is a mineral that, when present regularly in the mouth, has been shown through a great deal of dental research to help strengthen tooth enamel and meaningfully reduce the rate of cavities, particularly in children whose teeth are still developing. and in anyone of any age who is prone to cavities for reasons of diet, genetics, or dry mouth. This is not a minor or disputed point. It is one of the most well-supported findings in modern dentistry, and the American Dental Association and the great majority of practicing dentists recommend fluoride toothpaste for that reason. My family does not use fluoride toothpaste, and I want to tell you honestly why, rather than pretending there is no trade-off at all. We have always relied on a combination of factors beyond toothpaste alone. A diet relatively low in the refined sugars that feed the bacteria responsible for most decay. Well water, naturally containing trace minerals in many parts of this county, and consistent brushing habits, twice a day without exception, taught to every child in this family from the time their first teeth came in. For us, on this farm, with this diet and this water and these habits, it has worked well across generations. I am not a dentist, and I will not tell you that our particular circumstances are a substitute for the research behind fluoride's protective effect in the general population. If you have a history of cavities, if your household's drinking water is not fluoridated, and your diet includes regular refined sugar, or if you are making this decision on behalf of a young child whose adult teeth have not yet come in, I want you to have an honest conversation with your dentist before switching away from fluoride toothpaste entirely, rather than taking my family's experience as a blanket recommendation for yours. This is exactly the kind of decision where your particular mouth, your particular water, your particular diet, and your particular dental history matter more than any single video can account for. What I can tell you honestly is what this toothpaste does well, regardless of the fluoride question. It cleans effectively. It removes plaque and surface buildup through genuine mechanical and mild chemical action. It freshens breath. It contains nothing synthetic, nothing with a long warning label, nothing in a plastic tube destined for a landfill. For someone specifically looking to reduce fluoride intake by choice, for someone managing a sensitivity to one of the many additives in commercial toothpaste, or simply for someone who wants to know plainly and completely what is in the paste going into their mouth twice a day, this recipe serves that purpose honestly and well. It is not, and I will not pretend it is, a direct one-to-one replacement for the specific cavity-fighting research behind fluoride, and the right choice depends on your own circumstances more than it depends on anything I can tell you in a single video. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters most. Regardless of which toothpaste you ultimately choose to use, think about what we have just walked through. Baking soda, coconut oil, a pinch of salt, a few drops of peppermint. Ingredients you could likely find in your own kitchen cabinet right now, combined into something that has cleaned teeth effectively for people long before any of us were born in some form or another, going back to ancient civilizations that ground charcoal and crushed eggshells for the very same purpose. And on the other side of that fact, a toothpaste industry built around convincing an entire country that oral care requires a specific manufactured product, packaged in plastic that cannot be easily recycled, sold with elaborate marketing about whitening power and sensitivity protection and enamel-strengthening technology, much of which genuinely works, I will not deny that, but very little of which is mysterious or impossible to understand, or impossible to approximate at home for a fraction of the cost. I do not say this to suggest anyone is being deceived. A great deal of commercial toothpaste, particularly the kind containing properly formulated fluoride, represents real, well-tested dental science, and I have just told you honestly that my family's approach carries a genuine trade-off in that specific area. But the basic cleaning action, the part that does the daily work of lifting plaque and freshening breath and supporting a less acidic, less hospitable mouth for decay-causing bacteria, has never required anything more complicated than what sits in my wife's kitchen cabinet, and there is no reason that knowledge should feel like a secret. It became one anyway, the same way so much of this old knowledge did, simply because there is a great deal of money in a tube you must buy again every few weeks, and very little money in a jar you fill yourself for pennies. So here is what I want you to do this week, with the honest caveat I just gave you firmly in mind. If you do not have particular dental concerns that call for ongoing fluoride use, and you would like to know plainly what is in the paste you use every day, mix the recipe. 2 tablespoons of baking soda, a half teaspoon of fine sea salt, 2 tablespoons of softened coconut oil, 8 to 10 drops of food-grade peppermint oil. Stir it together, spoon it into a small jar, and use it for 2 weeks alongside your regular brushing habits, paying attention to how your mouth feels. If you have cavity concerns, growing children, or specific guidance from your dentist around fluoride, have that conversation with them first, honestly, the same way I have just had it with you, before making any change. Either way, tell me in the comments below, have you ever actually read the full ingredient list and warning label on your toothpaste tube? What did you find, and did anything surprise you? I read every single comment, and the conversations this channel has around these everyday products people have never thought twice about are some of the most useful exchanges that happen here. Next time, since we have been talking about the simple things we use every single day without much thought, I am going to show you the old way my family keeps wooden cutting boards and butcher blocks properly conditioned and free of bacteria, using nothing but mineral oil and beeswax, a habit that makes a good wooden board last for decades instead of warping and cracking within a few years the way an unconditioned one will. Until then, mix your jar, have the honest conversation if you need to, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.